Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the Hollywood Critics Association's new series, What to Stream. My name is Morgan Rojas, and I'm a member of the HCA and the founder of Cinemacy, which is a website dedicated to independent film. And we're going to be talking about some independent films and some blockbusters and some amazing movies today on this episode. And I'm joined by our co-host, Lupe. Lupe, can you tell me a little bit about your site and tell the fine people out there who you write for and what your outlet is?
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Lupe. I run and own Cinemovie. It's a website covering movies and TV. And obviously, I'm a HCA member. And we're getting more members, as you know.
Yes.
And there's applications. So if you're a journalist writing about movies and TV. Oh, and we're taking more TV. We're taking TV critics and journalists this year. So
yeah, new development. That's exciting.
New development. So yeah. So we're going to be talking movies. And actually, I only have movies this time. So.
Nice.
But I hear you're going to get started first.
Yes. Okay. So we are going to be first talking about movies that are coming to theaters on Friday. And actually, yeah, legitimately coming to theaters. Finally, like movies are back. And one movie that I'm going to talk about today is the film called French Exit. This movie came out a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, really limited. I think it was just playing at the Vineland Drive-In, but this Friday, it's going to be coming to the Landmark and AMC in Burbank. So if you are vaccinated and want to go to see a movie in theaters, you can see French Exit. So this movie deals with a widowed New York woman, a socialite, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and she is down and out. Her husband passed away. She thought she was going to be able to live off of his money. Turns out she can't because he didn't leave her any. She's at ground zero, has no idea of what to do next. So she takes her son, who's played by Lucas Hedges, and they decide to go to Paris to spend some time there at a friend's apartment for free. And then what develops once they get to Paris is very interesting. I want to say I liked this movie. Sort of. I went into it kind of with high expectations. Right off the bat, it reminded me of a Woody Allen type movie, but without Woody Allen in it. So I really appreciated the style of filmmaking. I thought it was this kind of neurotic, dry humor, kind of dark comedy that I've missed seeing. But it kind of blurs the line between if this is actually a funny dark comedy or if it's just not funny and if it's just weird at all. Like, it's not silly enough to be kind of quirky, in my opinion. It just falls a bit flat for me. The tone is a little bit difficult, but I will say the performances are great. Michelle Pfeiffer is great. Lucas Hedges is great. They play these characters just with such a dry sense of humor that if you are fans of, their past work and want to see them in something new and fresh, I say French Exit would be an interesting choice. I don't know if you haven't gone to the movies in a year and you're looking to make this big comeback to a movie theater. I don't know if French Exit is necessarily the one that you want to see first to be like, this is the movie I saw first post-pandemic. Maybe wait, but if you just want to see a movie, you don't care what it is, there's some stuff to like in French Exit. So I think you won't be too disappointed. So that is my pick for this Friday's release.
I thought that would be out on digital by now. It's been out, well, not out, but I think they've been released it slowly for the last few months, right?
Yeah. So it's been out. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think maybe they just saw this window of opportunity to put it in theaters and pushed for it, which is cool. I mean, people are going back to movie theaters, and that's kind of a nice sign of hope, I think.
I know. I can't wait to get my second shot. So this summer, Black Widow, maybe Black Widow. That's my aim. Black Widow. We actually moved it to July, so maybe a little sooner. Maybe in May. Maybe I'll consider May.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's one I've been wanting to see because of Michelle Pfeiffer's performance.
Yeah, I mean, that alone would be great. Yeah, and I think she was nominated for a performance for a Golden Globe, I want to say. So yeah, there are things to like in it, but it just maybe wasn't my cup of tea entirely. But yeah, what about you? What do you have for this Friday?
Well, total opposite, and it's actually it's actually already streaming on HBO Max. Godzilla versus Kong. We've been waiting for this matchup for the longest time. I went in Team Godzilla, came out Team Kong. So
really?
I was surprised. Yeah, I was surprised too. But essentially, it pits the two titans together. Godzilla and King Kong. Godzilla already has 2 movies under his belt. King Kong has 1. So I guess let me give you a little bit of the plot. So Godzilla is misbehaving, and we know in the old kaiju movies, sometimes he was a villain, sometimes he was a hero. So here he seems to be the villain starting out in the movie because he descends upon a city and destroys it and kills people. So everyone's wondering like what is going on with Godzilla. Millie Bobby Brown returns in her role here, and of course she is thinking there can't be anything wrong with something's wrong with Godzilla. Something's making him kill people. So she's out to investigate. She joins this blogger who is a conspiracy theorist who actually works at one of the companies that it's not Monarch. It's called Apex now. So they're in competition with this other company. And that's played by Brian Tyree Henry, and joining them is Julian Dennison. He's best known as Deadpool 2, the villain, not the villain, but he was the kid in Deadpool 2. And then we have Team Kong. And basically Team Kong, it's Alexander Skarsgård, Rebecca Hall, and the little girl, and she plays a deaf character, and she's deaf as well in real life. And her name is Kaylee Hotto. She steals the show. Such a sweet, sweet little thing. And this is basically Kong's story, because Kong's story is pretty flushed out. They bring Kong back. They bring Kong out of Skull Island because they found something that they think is Hollow Earth. So this is like the core of Earth. They're surmising that maybe this is where he came from, or his ancestors came from. And so they take him out of Skull Island because they need something more powerful than God. Well, they think more powerful than Godzilla. That's up for debate, of course, amongst fans and in the movie. And so that's why we see him on the boat, on the military boat, on the battleship, I should say. And he's battling Kong. So that's the premise of the story. So like I was saying, I went in loving Godzilla, but they don't really have a story around Godzilla. It's all Team Kong. So Team Kong is the heart of the story. Him and the little girl, they have this bond. And at some point, 1 or 2 instances, you get teary-eyed. It's so sweet. That relationship is just so grounded, and you just love that relationship, and you're invested in that relationship. The humans, you could care less about. The other humans, you can care less about. As usual, that's what we hear about these movies, that the characters are not fleshed out. And I personally think, King of the Monsters, Godzilla King of the Monsters, I actually thought it was more fleshed out. So the fact that people say it's not fleshed out, I mean, there was a beginning and end and middle. We need the motivations. Here, the characters, the motivations just because what team they're on. But if they're so one-dimensional, it's laughable. Like there's just one character. I'm glad that there's 2 Mexican actors in this movie. I'm so happy Damian Bashir and Isa Gonzalez are in this movie. But they played it so one-dimensional, it was laughable. Damian Bashir looks like he's the greatest man on earth out of those commercials. The way he dresses like a billionaire,
Right.
billionaire playboy. It was just ridiculous. And Isa Gonzalez plays his daughter, who goes to with Team Kong to basically supervise. They've let Apex, which he runs, they have this vehicle that can get him to Hollow Earth. So she goes along for the ride and to supervise essentially, but she just plays it like a snob, like a rich kid snob. And you're like, why? Why would they do that? Like they should have given her a little more layers. So there's just so many human characters here, and we could have done without them, except for the little girl, Kong. And then, like I mentioned, Godzilla doesn't have much of a story here. He just shows up for the fights. So he's a cameo. That's what I say.
Interesting. Okay, I was talking to a friend about this actually this morning, who is a huge Godzilla fan. if you are a huge Godzilla fan and you see this movie, will you be like disappointed then that he's not in it a lot?
I think so. I mean, like I said, I came
Okay.
out Team Kong. There was still that heart of the movie, which was Kong. But I was really wanting to see more of Godzilla. I wanted to be equal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have kind of like a Godzilla story where they're still pulling at your heartstrings with that character, and also with, you know, King Kong. And then the monster fights just weren't. They were disappointing. Why? Because the sound design was disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
The like fans of the kaiju movies, and if you're King of the Monsters, I think they did that perfectly. They captured the kaiju feel, whereas the music is low and you hear just the monsters go at each other, destruction. Like that sound is just so palatable. Here, it's hidden under loud music, basically. The soundtrack doesn't make sense. They have, you know, a couple of tunes here and there, and then my husband were like, "What? Like that makes no sense whatsoever."
Oh, no.
And, you know, like Kong in the beginning, he starts out with like waking up in the morning, this weird little happy song playing. You're like, okay, that just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit Monster Universe. And then at the end, I'm going to spoil something, so cover your ears. Mechagodzilla is in it for like 5 seconds. And you're like, really? Like they could have bring him in like maybe a little sooner, because it's like he comes in, you're like, oh man, this is going to be good. And then it's over. You're like, oh, okay.
Are they hoping for a sequel then, maybe? Or
oh yeah, I mean it's the MonsterVerse, so I don't know what direction they're gonna take it. In the original kaiju movies, Mechagodzilla was built by aliens, so it got a little ridiculous. I mean, the kaiju movies, they're known for their monster mashups, not so much the story. So in essence, these are kind of like fitting into that, you know. So I don't know where they're going to take it. I mean, they've done, like I said, this is third movie with Godzilla. King Kong, this is the second one. So I don't know where they're going to spin it off. Are they going to go a different direction with another kaiju from the franchise? So I don't know. I don't know where else they can take it. I don't know. I mean, I think they pretty much brought all the famous ones, all the famous villains of Nemesis of Godzilla into King of Monsters. So I don't know what direction they're going to take. I mean, I'd say take the alien route. Who knows? I don't know. That would be ridiculous.
Guess we'll have to wait and see.
We'll wait and see. I mean, like I said, maybe kaiju fans will not enjoy it, but I heard a lot of people say it was really great of a movie and that they were really psyched about it. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't know. It depends on like where you're at. Like if you don't have any connection with the kaiju movies, this might pass. You know, but I saw one person on Twitter complain that, and he's actually right. I forgot that in Ready Player One movie, there was a Mechagodzilla in that one. So I looked up the picture and I said, oh yeah, that Mechagodzilla was way better than the one they brought in to Godzilla versus Kong. So yeah, because the Mechagodzilla here looked a little too robust. I don't know if that's the exact word, but he had these things sticking out of his spine. Like Godzilla, he has I don't know what you call those, his spine.
Yeah.
But they're like so thick and so, I don't know, clunky looking. And you're like, oh, okay. I don't know. But
interesting.
Yeah. So the Mechagodzilla in Ready Player One is way better than the design is better than this one. So.
Gotcha.
But you know, if you're looking for a good old time, by all means see it. It's on HBO Max as well as in theaters. I saw it at home on my 65-inch TV. It looked really, really good. Technically, it looks very, very good. I didn't see any CGI that took me out of it. Bad CGI that took me out of it. So, I mean, I would have rather have seen it on the big screen. And if it's still around the summer, I might check it out. Maybe the experience is different because some people who adored it actually saw it at a drive-in. So I think at a drive-in, it's a different kind of mood.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just like the communal experience. You can't be replicated at home.
Yeah, watching it at home, you're like, oh, I wish I was experiencing it with a lot of people. But it's on HBO Max, so, you know, have a watch party. Might be fun that way.
Yeah, nice. Sweet. Well, if those two films aren't ones that you're interested in watching on Friday, because I don't know, mixed bag, I think. We have a couple more that we want to talk about that are ones that you may have missed. And so one film that is now on Netflix that came out a few years ago is called Una. And this is directed by Benedict Andrews. It was his feature film debut. He most recently did Seberg with Kristen Stewart. And Una stars Rooney Mara as a character who confronts him. It's kind of a dark movie, but she confronts a man years later who had sexually groomed and abused her as a child. And the man is played by Ben Mendelsohn. His name is Ray in the film. And this movie is adapted from a play called Blackbird. And it's a really powerful and strong film. Again, it's heavy because of the subject matter. It's kind of like this movie Elle that came out a while ago too, with Isabelle Huppert, how sexual assault is not always black and white in the victim's eyes. I think especially when people are groomed, it's hard. It's not always an easy break, or like the character Una in this film, she develops an emotional relationship and attachment to this guy Ray, even though what he did is clearly repulsive and illegal and wrong. She was so impressionable as a child that she thought that his attention on her was love, and she grew to love him. And years later, when he distances himself from Una, he kind of takes on a new life and tries to forget what he did in the past. He regrets it, but still he did it, so it's terrible. Una, though, never forgot him, and she traces him down to try and rekindle their once, I don't know, relationship. And it's hard to watch because you know that she just is so mentally unwell that she still wants to be with him, even though he did this thing. It affects her relationships that she's in currently, like with her boyfriend, who's played by Riz Ahmed, actually, in one of his earlier film roles, who's great in this movie as well. It's just a hard movie to kind of understand the characters' reasonings and actions, but that's what makes it so interesting and so powerful, is because we don't always agree with the characters and what they do, but it shows you a different perspective as to why someone might think this way or act the way that Una does in particular. So it's it's a bit heavy, but if you're looking for a powerful drama that is on Netflix, I would recommend Una.
Yeah, that sounds dark. So I'm gonna watch
it.
Yeah, I like all these dark material.
Yeah,
well, I mean, no, it's an interesting subject. How that kind of a relationship as a young kid that really affects you, because people are always wondering why wouldn't you get away from such a person, and it's not easily explained.
Yeah, so it's like Stockholm syndrome in a way.
Stockholm syndrome, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's tough to watch, but yeah, Rooney Mara is great. I mean, she's always, I think, just like this quiet presence that's so strong, and so she does the same here. And she has a British accent in this movie, so you can, that's kind of fun.
How does she do in that department?
It's hard when she's against British actors, so it's very easy to spot that she's not British. But if you kind of aren't too critical of that, it passes okay, I think.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. Well, on the opposite end as well, I got mindless entertainment for you. I was on a mindless entertainment binge this weekend.
Nice. I need some of that.
Sometimes I was at Friday and I was like, I'm put the computer down. I'm just going to look for whatever I can find. And so I went to Amazon Prime and I did a double feature last Friday night, and they're pretty good. I mean, they're entertaining. Like I said, you're at home, nothing to do. Why not? So the first one is Honest Thief, and it is with Liam Neeson. And you know what you're getting with Liam Neeson. So basically it's an action thriller. He plays a bank robber who meets this woman played by Kate Walsh, and he decides to turn over a new leaf. He wants to give up the bank robbery business and go straight. So he calls it at the FBI department. I forgot what location he's at. He wants to turn himself in, but in exchange for a lighter sentence if he returns all the money. He's such a good guy that he's a bank robber, but yet he never spent the money that he robbed because he's such a good guy. Later you find out the motivation for why he did that. But, of course, they need to make him like a nice guy, even though he's a bank robber. So there you go. So he wants to go straight. And these agents are sent in to investigate. And of course, they're crooked. They're crooked FBI agents. They're played by Jai Courtney and Anthony Ramos. and they want to steal his money. So, you know what we do? You know what Liam Neeson does when there's bad guys in the picture? He goes after them. So it's and like I mentioned, it's a mindless entertainment, but it's fun. It's Liam Neeson. If you're a fan of Liam Neeson, I mean, there's a reason why he keeps making the same type of movie over and over again, because there's an audience, and I'm one of those suckers that, you know, I will check it out no matter when, because he's fun. I mean, he plays such a likable character all the time that you don't mind it. And like I said, it's Amazon Prime. If you're a subscriber, what do you got to lose already, you know? And then once you finish that movie, then you can go see The Informer. I stumbled upon that one last Friday night. It's an action thriller starring Joel Kinnaman. And he plays, like the name suggests, an informer for the FBI. Oh, there's a theme here. FBI. Wow. I didn't know that was purely accidental. So yeah, Joel Kinnaman is an ex-convict. And the FBI recruits him to be an informer against the mob. They're like Ukrainian mob. And so he works for them as well. And there's a lot of double crossing in this action thriller. It's a great cast. As you can see here, you have Rosamund Pike, Carmen, Ana de Armas, and Clive Owen. So it's a great cast. It's actually a really good story. Rosamund Pike, how can I forget Rosamund Pike? She's always good in anything she does. And it's just really entertaining. I started watching just because I said I had nothing else to do. I want to relax. And my husband actually started watching it like 40 minutes later, and he got hooked. Not even watching it from the start. He got hooked right away because he's like, oh, what's going on? Like, what's all this double crossing? I like it, you know? So yeah, he liked it. And yeah, it's a really good action thriller. I'm surprised I never heard of it. It came out in 2019, and I guess it just went straight to digital because I don't recall it having a theatrical release, and it was pre-pandemic, so we can't use that excuse for it. But yeah, that's a good action thriller. I highly recommend it. Like I said, if you're looking for some mindless entertainment, just to shoot the breeze, have some popcorn. These are essentially popcorn movies. So, but I said they're good. I mean, I like them. They're not bad, like cheesy bad, but they're good thrillers that if you don't pay extra money to go to movie theater, just check it out on Amazon Prime.
Nice. Yeah, I'm the type that if I want to watch something mindless, I'd rather watch a thriller or like an action-y type of movie than a comedy for some reason. So those, I like those. I'll put those on my list.
Yeah, put those on your list. Like I said, it was it was Friday night. I was ready to fall asleep, and then The Informer was just so good. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to stay up and watch it. Even my husband was.
Yeah, it's your bedtime.
My husband's usually asleep on the couch at 10 o'clock because he works all day and he's tired. So, but like I said, he was into it. I'm like, aren't you sleeping? He's like, no, this is good.
Well, hey, that's like the best review you can give. If you're tired,
especially when you come in 40 minutes into the movie and he just picked it up. I just gave him a brief little plot synopsis, and he was like, oh, okay. So
nice.
Yeah.
So
what's up next?
Yeah, so we are wrapping up this episode with our favorites. And I have a few favorites, but one that I want to talk about today, I brought this because I thought it's not sponsored, so I won't show it. In Another Round, I'm talking about Another Round. And if you haven't seen the movie Another Round, it is basically a group of 4 high school teachers who consume alcohol on a daily basis to see how it affects their social and professional lives.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yes. So I am having a beer as I talk about this movie. I really liked this film when I saw it a couple months ago. It is the director, Thomas Vinterberg. He is nominated actually for Best Director, and he's the first Danish filmmaker to be nominated for Best Director ever, which is kind of crazy. And the fact that he's nominated at all for Best Director this year at the Oscars is also crazy, I think. A lot of people were surprised. But I enjoyed this movie a lot. I thought it presented a really interesting idea. Basically, the film centers around a group of teachers, specifically one played by Mads Mikkelsen, and they test out a theory that a Norwegian philosopher put forward that said humans are born with a blood alcohol content deficit that is 0.05% too low. And so to counteract that, we should be drinking at least one glass of wine a day to regain more self-confidence and just to be a little more outgoing, a little more enthusiastic about life, perhaps. And so the teachers and the 4 men that go on this challenge test it out, and as one can probably assume, it goes well in the beginning. They're having a lot of fun because they drink, it starts with just a beer, and then they kind of push the limits and go a little further and further and further as the days go on, until it ultimately reaches this breaking point where, of course, there's an overindulgence, and then things in their personal lives and professional lives shatter because they are drunk all the time, which makes sense. What is a really interesting fact, though, that I read recently on IndieWire is the director, Thomas Vinterberg. He was actually making this movie. He originally envisioned this movie starring his teenage daughter. And as they were preparing to make the movie and they were in pre-production, she unfortunately died in a car crash. So it pushed the film, and also it forced him to kind of rethink what this movie was going to be. And that was a really interesting fact that I had no idea, that this was going to be essentially a film, a vehicle for his daughter to be an actor and to like make her mark on the scene. But unfortunately that wasn't able to happen. So the fact that this movie is getting attention, I think, is great for him. It's a solid movie, and it would be interesting to see what it would have been like with a teenage girl in the lead as opposed to a middle-aged man. Very different characters, but I think ultimately the film works with what he had, and it's a fun one. So I would recommend that. It is, oh yes, it is streaming on Hulu right now. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend checking it out with a drink because it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that movie came out of nowhere where it's like, what is this movie that was nominated? That's just so bizarre. That was just out of the blue.
Yeah, there's been talk that it's might win. It might take Best Foreign, so that wasn't so surprising. But the fact that the director was put in the category of, Best Director with all the others, that was kind of a shock. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, at least it gets more eyes on the film, and since it's already streaming, so that's a good thing for the distributor and the director.
Yeah, very true.
Okay, so now I'm going to be talking about classic films you can find on streaming platforms. And I don't know what possessed me to see it, but I went flashback into time and watched Superman from 1978, starring Christopher Reeve as the Man of Steel and Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. And I completely forgot Gene Hackman was Lex Luthor.
Oh,
right?
Like, I didn't know that.
I knew it at the time, and a few years after that I had watched it, but it's been probably 2 decades I have not seen that movie. And for some strange reason, after I saw Justice League, the Justice Snyder cut, I was like, I really want to watch the Superman movie for some reason. And then I remembered HBO Max has all those movies
nice.
on their platform. So I did Superman 1 and Superman 2. And I really love this movie. It takes me back to the time when I watched it the first time. I'm sure everyone knows the storyline. It's the same exact story of Superman, his origin story. Seeing Marlon Brando as dad. It took you back, and it still plays really well, I think. Even though the special effects obviously are still a little rough, but overall, I think it's just a feel-good type of movie that this is, total opposite of what we see now, which is fine. It's a different take of Superman, a little darker. Zack Snyder goes a little darker, but I can understand how some people still crave the innocent time of Superman, because he was that innocent kind of guy in the beginning. He played it kind of naive. He was trying to romance Lois Lane, and it was just such a sweet, sweet throwback. that I really, really enjoyed. And I still remember where I saw it. I saw it at the Orpheum Theater in downtown LA. It's now a historical place. And when we got out, I went flying like Superman. And I remember mom's like, don't go too far, because there was at that time there were homeless people, not as many as there is now. But there were still some around, and I just remember like flying like Superman, like I'm Superman. And mom's like, don't go too far. There's like mental people around. Come back here. So I just remember how good it felt when I left that theater. Like, wow, I was so blown away. That was, I think, probably my first superhero movie I had watched. I watched the George Reeves Superman on television, the black and white. So I was a big Superman fan since I was a kid. I was a couch potato. What can I say? I watched kaiju movies. Everything. And then
where you are now, so
yeah,
good.
That's why I'm a geek. And then Superman 2, I also took it in, and I read a little bit of the history. I forgot, right? Richard Donner, the director, was taken off the movie, and another director was brought in, and later there was a Richard Donner cut. I don't believe I saw it, but it makes sense when I watched the movie, because there's some part he was removed because the producers wanted a more like comedic take on the story. And if you know Superman 2, it's dark. He chooses love over powers, and you lose his powers as these three the nemesis come onto Earth and take it over, and basically are terrorists, and he no longer has power. So it's very dark movie, but there's some parts where you can see the comical aspect. You can see where the second director came in and brought in some just ridiculous scenes. If you remember the second movie, when the villains are blowing the villains are going to come, a mob is forming because they think they killed Superman. So they're going to attack the villains. And so they start blowing them with their power. And you see all sorts of ridiculousness. You see like people on skates flying by. It was just ridiculous. I'm like, okay, that wasn't Richard Donner, because now as I watched it today, modern day, you can see the two different tones of the movie. And so you can see why the producers wanted to go one route and Richard Donner wanted to go a different route. So it's interesting with all that knowledge to know what's going on today with what happened with Zack Snyder and what happened to Richard Donner. It was just interesting to watch, especially the second movie, to see, how you had that struggle. It wasn't the studio. They said it was the producers. That internal struggle where somebody wants one tone and another person wants a different tone. So it's an age-old dilemma for filmmakers, because they're always battling like what versus what producers want.
Interesting to, I think, the common person, and even me up until a couple of years ago, when you think of someone making a movie or director making a movie, you think it's like, okay, it's their vision, they're going to make their movie, but it's really not. At the end of the day, it's kind of all of these people have to sign off and say yes. So it's kind of fascinating, like that a movie gets made with any one singular vision is like pretty rare, I think.
Well, I think that's why with Netflix, it's so, for filmmakers, I think it's such a great, even though you see here like Christopher Nolan and some other directors crapping on Netflix, but if you don't want, Christopher Nolan probably has no intervention because he's Christopher Nolan, right? But it's not the same for everybody else. Christopher Nolan tells them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
As we found out with Tenet. But every time when Netflix first came out, I started interviewing producers and people on shows and movies. They're like, "Oh my God! Like, there's no suits coming on set telling you what to do. That's all the vision of the filmmakers." Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm always on board a streaming platform, especially Netflix, because they're known for hands off. Mm-hmm. So that's why filmmakers gravitate to that, because like, oh, hands off, okay. And maybe that's perhaps why we're getting better choices of movies on streaming platforms, because filmmakers are left alone to do what they do. So that's just my take,
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. That's so smart.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, you got plenty of choices.
Yes, we have lots of choices for you, and we would love to hear your choices. If you have any films at home that you think we should watch or recommend to us, please leave them in the comments below. We'd love to check it out. There are still so many movies that I have not seen. So any recommendations, I welcome them and want them all. Thank you so much for watching. Until we see you next week on the next episode, this is What to Stream, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yay!
Yay.